Thanks for joining me today. My name is Todd Menard, and today we're going over the White Mountains surrounding area real estate housing market statistics for the week ending on November 3rd, 2025. Let's get right into our numbers. This past week, we had 120 days closed on market. Our month supply was at 5.41. Absorption rate is at 18.49. Average list price this past week, $442,441. Average sale price this past week, $413,103. And our list price to sale price retention at 93.37. Taking a look at active inventory, down to 952 available properties. Pending is sitting at 35 and closed units at 176 month to date. Taking a look at new listings taken, down 7% to 40 units. Days on market is 119.8 for active and 120 for closed. Let's take a look at the lower left-hand side where we take a look at the active inventory and then also the closed inventory for this past week at the bottom. So the active inventory, as you can see, there were a couple of declines in the $0 to $250,000 market, and the 500 to million market took a little bit of a contraction there. In closed properties that were taken closed this past week, you can see that each of the different markets from $0 to $1 million, each of those were a contracted number in comparison to those properties that had closed a prior cycle. Taking a look at the spreadsheet where everybody gets to be the expert because we get to look at last year, same period, week over week, and month over month and year over year, all on one page. So this past week, although the week before we had 43 units, we were only at 40 new units this past week. And again, that basically, let me get over there again. Basically, that is commensurate with where we were last year, this period at 41. So very, very close. So there are just as many people entering into, or almost as many, one short, entering into the marketplace, meaning putting their properties up for sale as there was last year. So a very, very similar sentiment as far as what they're expecting. And of course, the market that's existing today. Taking a look at active inventory, we're sitting at 952 available properties. Of those, 77 are in the condo townhouse categories, 5 factory built, 185 manufactured homes, 2 modular homes, 52 park RV models. There were 3 ranch and farms, 4 multifamily, 629 site-built properties, and 54 new home constructions. Brings the total to 952, but one of those properties is a short sale, and 6 of those properties are real estate owned, which is a bank-owned property. So again, there is a small investment market. If you are interested in taking a look at those particular properties that are distressed, again, we don't know what condition any of those are in. All we know is that one client is in a short sale process and 6 are bank owned. Taking a look at pending this past week, 35 up from 25. And all this basically means is right now there's 35 people in escrow where last week there were only 25. So this ebbs and flows. It's something that is too dramatic either way. But the fact that there's more buyers in the marketplace is a reason why some of the inventory was eaten up, even though we did have a similar new to market. Taking a look at close, we're sitting at 176 units, up right in between there. So looking at 176 units in comparison to 178 last year. So again, we're trending similar to last year as far as units sold for the month of October. We are in November, but we're actually, let me rephrase that. That is where we are this week, week over week. So it is the first week of November last year. And then our close numbers down here at the bottom reflect just what's taken place in the last 7 days. So based on the last 7 days, we're at a 5.41 month supply. We're sitting at a median price of 370 this week, where 400 last week. The average list price was 442,000. Average sale price at 413. In comparison to last year, they were at 481 last year, so versus 440. So again, median was at 375. So that's only a $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000 median jump. And actually, it's from same period last year, it's actually a reduction in that 6,000. Looking at active, one of the things that popped here was that the average days on market for sold is no longer short. We're now into that 120, 122. So the properties that sold this past week, actually closed this past week, we're averaging 120 days on market. So that's good to know for people. If you have a listing that is currently 120 days on market, the market's still good for you. And again, it's location, 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 condition, condition, condition. So again, we were at a 191 for market time last year, so much slower. But at the same time, the properties that were selling were about 97 days on market versus 120. So we're selling older properties right now, older properties that have been listed longer right now than we did last year, this same time period. But the most important piece is this last one here. I call it the most important piece, because what it's telling us is how much did the seller reduce their price to get those transactions that closed this past week. So in essence, 93.37 versus 97.22, the sellers gave up about an additional 4.5% off the list price at the time they accepted the buyer's offer. And again, sometimes those offers are 30 days old. You write the offer last month, but it closes this month. So we're always kind of looking a month back when we look at closings. And what the market was really 30 days ago. But in this particular case, during that market, when these properties that closed this past week were accepted by the sellers, the difference between the list price and the price on the contract, the seller retained 93.37% this past week versus 97%, 97.22. And that's much closer. 97.47 is our 5-year historical average. So we're always looking for numbers. And last year, this time, the sellers were at 96.36. So something to take into consideration as you're readying yourself to sell your home. I would take a look right now, if I was a listing agent or a seller, at what houses have sold similar to mine in a particular area, and then look at not just what the list price to sell price retention was, but also take a look at what the concessions paid by the seller to the buyer were. And that'll give you a little bit of an understanding, because sometimes, if a buyer, and I've been kind of saying this on an ongoing basis because I'm trying to really drill it through everybody's head, which is sometimes you don't ask for a discount, you ask for concessions because a buyer may need more concessions to close. Again, this doesn't always happen in resort markets or second home markets, but it certainly happens in markets where people workforce housing and entry-level housing, and markets where people live there full time. So that's really the difference between different sets of numbers. But I would take a look not only at the list price to sale price retention, how much on average are the sellers giving up off their current list price at the time, and how much are the sellers contributing towards the buyer's concessions. Those would be the two numbers I'd want. Now, if I was on the buyer side of the transaction, I'd want to do the identical same thing, but for a totally different reason. I'd want to understand, are sellers prepared for a discount in price? Are sellers prepared for concessions? Are they prepared for both on the same contract? So sometimes a buyer may not need as much, so you want a little bit of the discount and a little bit of the concessions at the same time. But again, this is how you understand and how you identify whether or not, how are you going to package your buyer and what are you going to go in and ask for. So I hope some of this information was helpful. And I certainly look forward to seeing you guys next week. Next week, we will have month-end numbers for the month of October. Those will have been washed, and we can rely upon the numbers next week. So imagine that on Monday. I would imagine that you're going to have that maybe Friday this week, but probably more Monday. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.